Hello and welcome to the Tribe of Superb Women's webinar. I am so thrilled that you are here joining us today. My name is Janet Neal. I am the founder and queen bee of the Superb Woman Incorporated. And I have my guest with me today, Selina Maitreya. And Selina, a dear friend, is a spiritual teacher of practical spirituality. And we're going to get to Selina's story and her wonderful message that she's got for you today in just a second. I just want to tell you a little bit about the Tribe of Superb Women, which is an organization based on my belief that women are powerful beings when we realize it. And it's all about being first, which is why I talk about being superb, all about the bee. Superb women have a few qualities that I have noticed. They are comfortable in their own skin. They realize they cannot do it by themselves, and they've let go of the shoulds in their life. Selina is actually a great example of superb women, and Selina is a member of the Tribe of Superb Women. And as a benefit of membership, you have the ability to share your message with the rest of the tribe and our community at large. So, Selina, thank you so much for joining today.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Always a delight to be with you, even if we're just electronically together today. So, Selina has shared her story with me in the past, but I would love for you to share it again, because it really speaks to how you went from being this acclaimed consultant that worked with photographers, and what would you say, you dealt part-time in the spiritual world?
Yeah, I was always, excuse me, I was a deep spiritual student for many years, but I wanted to teach as well as consult, but there was no time because my life was so full. So I would say, yes, I went from being a very busy and successful consultant to commercial photographers, writing books, lecturing, working with my clients, to having an opportunity to be available to teach. I wasn't available. There wasn't space in my life, mental space, physical space, and also energetically. While I had studied quite a bit and done an awful lot of work to make my life my practice, I still wasn't available to teach until my car event.
So share with us what happened.
Well, in the process, I'm about to be 62, and I met my first teacher when I was 16, so it kind of goes all the way back there. And my name, Selina Maitreya, was given to me back at the very young age of 16. And life progressed, and I put my spiritual teachings aside in the 70s when I was married to a rock drummer, and life was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was quite a lot of fun. I would never trade that for anything. But when I became my late 20s, it was really clear to me that I wasn't in integrity with myself. And it was very important for me to do that. So I got sober. I decided to, have a whole new group of people. I went into therapy for 12 years. And I went back to having spirituality as a very big part of my life. Met a new man, married, had 2 children. My career as a consultant to photographers, I was the first consultant in the country. And because this was a new industry, it started to take off. So for the next 14 years, I was happily married, working as a consultant. Through that consultancy, I got hired by Target and to build portfolios for their photography team. And one of the photographers, this was Minneapolis, I was going back and forth, introduced me to the teacher who's been my teacher for 19 years. And so through my world as a photography consultant, I actually deepened my spirituality even more by meeting my teacher. During the time of working with her, Spirit channeled through me the first time about 3 years into our work and told me that I was to be a teacher. And I was, well, thank you. It's wonderful, but I'm not ready. I was about to go into a divorce. I've been married for 14 years. And life was so full. I was writing a book, I was lecturing, I was saving theaters and land, I was cooking dinner every night. I had filled my life with wonderful, wonderful qualities, and I meditated, but I couldn't take it on. So Spirit said, well, you are a teacher. And whether you choose to teach is
Mm.
different from whether you are a teacher. Um, and so it was the next several years of my life. I did give teachings at different spiritual centers. Whenever I was on a book tour, I would hold an evening of grace, which was an evening they gave me to share with people. And so being a teacher happened organically, but it wasn't enough for me. The more I had an opportunity to teach, the hungrier I got to teach.
Mm.
And it became a real drive for me. Like, I just wanted to teach. And I was striving, and I was like, well, why isn't this happening? And Spirit kept saying, you're in endurance. You are in endurance. You need to be patient because it will happen. And I knew that when my boys were grown, my job was to take care of the house. I had stepped up to be the primary financial breadwinner. And I knew that when my boys were raised and the time was, I would move into the next phase of my life, that things would look different. So I just appreciated what I had, but I was always still wanting to teach more. And then one day I was actually walking in my kitchen. I will never forget this moment, from the counter to the refrigerator, something very simple. And Spirit landed and said, it's time to sell your house. It's time to move on.
Uh-huh.
And so there I was in this house that I had lived in for 20 years and 10 gardens I had created, home, which was important to me. And I knew that that was to be. So my boys were now living with their girlfriends. And I spent the next 6 months packing up my house. It sold in a day. And I was a big planner. I had planned for photographers. I created their careers. I had planned my life. I planned the move. I had an Audi convertible. It was going to go to my son, Jake, who had never had a great car for a year, so I could move to New York. And we gave it to him. I didn't sell it because what if I moved to New York and I wanted to move back? And then Jake's car was going to the neighbor across the street. So everything had been planned, which was how my life was. And there we were, the day before the last week I was in the house. The boys got their furniture. I put everything on a pod. I was waiting to hear about apartments in New York. And I had to go to a hotel on a Friday night to sleep at the hotel because the house was empty. And I was meeting my cleaning lady the next day, who was a dear friend of mine, and we were going to clean this house together. It was a ritual we were going to do together because we had done it for so long. And then I was going to get in my car after the closing the next 2 days later and visit friends. So I'm driving over to my my house, and I just wanted to set the scene for you. So you kind of knew a little bit about what my life was like before the event. So I got into the car, and it was a gorgeous day, and my top was down, and I came to a traffic light. It was a very long light that I'd been at many thousands of times in the last 20 years. And I looked up, and it was really getting dark, so I put the top up, and the light turned green, and I moved through the light. And I heard what sounded like a train over my shoulder, and I went to look, and as soon as I looked, the entire car filled with light, and I knew I was dying. And I just thanked the universe for all of the many gifts I'd been given, because I felt I had had an unbelievable life. And then I ceased to exist. I say this in retrospect. I just didn't exist. So I came back into my body, and clearly the car stopped. I was immediately told by Spirit this was an event that they had created, and I was not to worry. I was to surrender, that the days ahead would not be easy, but they were purposeful. And I was taken to the hospital. There was jaws of life to get me out of the car. It was an A4 convertible, not the tiny ones, but it was. And I didn't have a broken bone or a scratch. So I was released with everybody thinking I was, excuse me, the miracle child.
Wow.
And I was very, very grateful. 3 days later, I wasn't able to walk down the hallway. And that began a 3.5-year odyssey for me. Where in the very early days through the first 2 years, I had maybe 2 hours of focus a day. I had suffered a traumatic brain injury. The woman who hit me right in the driver door. There were no airbags that, for whatever reason, did not come out. And she had a van, and she was going 70 miles an hour. So the impact on my brain, and then I was spun around several times, according to witnesses. And the impact on my brain was so severe that I was left in a place where I was unable to experience light or sound. I couldn't be in conversation or thought, concentrated thought for more than 2 hours a day. It was impossible for me clearly to go on buses or trains with any. Once I got to New York, I was pretty much in my apartment, although I did go out. It was rare and only when I had to. So it was a very different world. I was completely taken out of this busy life and put into a place where everything was put on hold. My son had to type notes to all my clients. The wonder of this, the beauty of this, is that for me, I can only speak about the experience. When my brain was injured, the filters that I assume, not being a doctor, but just being inside the experience, that we create, that separate us and that we need to have put in place because there's so much energy around. Everybody has energy, everything has energy. In order to just function, to just move through crowds, to have a conversation in a room with one person when 2 other people are talking,
Right.
filters, they're all gone. And so that made physical life extremely difficult. But it opened me up to this paradigm of existence where everything felt like the beautiful light in the car.
Wow.
And so all I had to do was just sit down in a chair and close my eyes, not meditate, not go to a deep state. It was all there for me. And I never had a moment of fear. I had great days of difficulty because things were physically difficult, but I wasn't in fear. I had no idea. My neurologist was not able to tell me when I'd be better. She said the only thing she could offer me was the tincture of time. I thought was beautiful. She thought maybe a few weeks, maybe 3 months. When 3 months came and I was still deep in the depths, well, maybe it's 6 months. When 6 months came, maybe it'll be a year. And a year, they think that wherever you are in your recovery is the best you'll have. So I was told a year into this that you will never be better. At that point, I wasn't able to work more than an hour or 2 a day. I couldn't write. I couldn't plan on any lectures. I couldn't do an interview like this. I couldn't plan on going to a museum. I couldn't go to the theater. I couldn't go to restaurants. I couldn't get in a cab. I couldn't be anywhere other than my apartment. But I chose not to believe this diagnosis. And I didn't have any expectations. I just knew that I had to continue to surrender to where I was and trust that I would be taken to a place where I would function. And if I wasn't able to function, then I would be provided for. Miracle things happened. I did not have a huge savings account. I had a tiny bit of money that I left the house with, and I had no way of earning a living, and I had my own business.
Right.
So there I was with no understanding of when or where, but magically things started to appear. That's way too long to go into now, but it was miraculous. And so I had been told by Spirit that they did this to reshift my energy and to download the material in a very consistent and complete form that I was to teach. So this was the answer to my prayers. This was the way they could speed dial my process, which ironically, you take somebody out of their life and you slow them really far down to speed dial their process.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, so the irony wasn't lost on me, Janet.
Well, it is, and as I said, I've heard that story before, but it's, I don't know, a year or so later since I've heard it, and the details have come out even more, which I'm still blown away. I was blown away the first time that I heard it. And as I said, I have been a student of Selina's and have experienced her amazing gifts, for which I am very grateful. And so I want to let you experience this as well. So what we had said we were going to talk about today is how to create calm and peace in these turbulent times, because I would think that's a a good term, turbulent times that we are in, for
Very
so
much.
many different reasons. And the question really is, do we want happiness or do we want peace?
Yeah, that's a wonderful, wonderful place to start. Do we want happiness or do we want peace? I think most people go to the word happiness. They want
Mhm,
to be
mhm.
happy. They want to lead a life that's happy.
Yeah.
Um, and happy is a quality. It's a lovely quality. It feels to me a lot more transient than peace does.
Mhm, mhm.
Peace is equanimity. It's a centeredness. It's a place where when you are peaceful, you don't need to be happy. Because when you're peaceful, you're not wishing for anything more. You're in this place of equanimity. You're accepting exactly what's there, that you're capable. In a peaceful state, you're capable of seeing the chaos, but not being the chaos. When you're
Love that.
peaceful, yeah, think about that. When you're peaceful, you're at peace. You can see that there's chaos out there,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
but it doesn't affect you. There's an internal equanimity that you've accomplished so that you can be empathetic even without it changing your level of peace. When you're happy because you're in that moment experiencing happiness. And that happiness can change at any point because happy is more
Very true.
transient than peace.
Yeah. Well, that's very true. I can think of examples of I wake up in a great mood and something happens and there went that happiness. But the days where I feel centered, for lack of a better term, things seem to roll off my back a little bit more
Mhm.
than otherwise would.
Exactly. And that's why I think the very first question, when we talk about wanting to be in a state that serves us, it's not that happiness doesn't serve, it's wonderful. But you can have happiness on top of peace. You can. But so you can be peaceful. You can be at a state where we're talking about the be. This is so perfect because it's how you be. So when you are being of peace, happiness is a layering of that. I mean, let's look at the Dalai Lama. He is a man who has been said is always at peace. And look how happy he
Happy.
is, right? But
Exactly.
his happiness comes and goes on his face,
Yeah.
but his state of peace remains. And so if you're happy, can you layer peace on it? Well, you can come and go in and out of the state of peace. You can experience peace, but actually being inside of peace, having peace be inside of you is a different experience. So people may experience peace the way they experience happiness. It comes, it goes.
Mhm.
Sadness comes and goes. But ultimately working towards being the state of peace versus the state of happiness, I would suggest that peace might be a place for people to explore.
So how does one get to that place? How do you find this inner peace? Are there practices to do? Is there, like steps to take to find peace?
It seems to be an evolution. It seems to be, I look at my own life. It seems in the lives of my students who I've been working with, who've been doing this work for quite some time, the state of peace seems to be an evolution, a state that you work towards. We are energy, there's no doubt about that. And what I do as a teacher, and people have said to me, what's different from what you do from a therapist or from a business coach or a life coach? A therapist will work with your history. We all want to create change. So if a person's looking to create change in their life and they want to be more of peace and they want to have ultimately a peaceful state, they can go to a therapist who will help them to work with their history in this body and what has happened in that history that has created a lack of peace. And they work from that perspective.
Mhm.
A life coach will work with what do you want and how do we get you there? And they work with your brain. They structure things.
Mhm.
Therapist works with history. Life coach works with brain. I work with the energy systems. Because as soon as we come into bodies, we are given with our first breath the high frequency of love, which is our natural inheritance, enters our body. People have lots of different words for this. but the high frequency enters upon the first breath that we take, and that joins the physical body, the brain. And as we move through life, we develop our personality and we develop our family history that will later work within therapy. So many uses, so many wonderful uses.
All connected.
Yes, we're so grateful for so many parts that it delivers to us. But ultimately, we have that high frequency within us. And babies, why are babies just so treasured? Because a tiny baby comes into a room, their personality has not been defined yet, their history isn't there, their brain is just starting to form. They are nothing but this high frequency. So as we go through our life and we start to use our brain, and our brain is an organ, and the brain structures around the frequency in the body. So as we experience pain as a child, as a baby to a child, we create low frequency. As we develop opinions and judgments, we have low frequency that we're creating. So then we become this combination of low and high frequency. You know, we're brought up to use our mind. What were you thinking? Why weren't you thinking? And so we emphasize the importance of our brain. So as we grow into these beings who are no longer just this high frequency. We're high frequency within a physical form. We have a brain that's functioning, that's sending out thoughts based on different frequencies that we're inhabiting, based on our history and our current experience, based on the chaos in our internal self, in our small local worlds, and the chaos in the external world. So all of that is happening. We're not thinking about all this. It's just going on as we grow older. And then we get to a point where we realize, oh, something in my life, either you're really in a lot of chaos personally, or you're experiencing the chaos that's out there and being affected by it, and something just isn't right. And you're finally starting to say, okay, I'm at a place where I need to accept responsibility for the fact that I'm more than just a thinking mind. I'm more than just a body. It's not all emotions here. Something else. I have the opportunity to affect something else. Effect, I guess it is. I always get the two confused. Effect something else. And that's when people start to say, okay, that's the beginning of this trajectory of creating peace for yourself. So that knowing, that awareness that something isn't peaceful, that something isn't right, that you are not, that you're in judgment, that you're depressed, that you may have what looks like a happy life and you have the marriage and the kids and the dog and the fence, but you're not happy. You may have a very busy life and you have no time for yourself and you're totally stressed, and it seems like there's absolutely nothing you can change in your life because everybody needs you.
Right.
And you have no time for yourself. So there's so many different things. You could have a medical emergency. You could lose your significant other. There's so many things happen in different ways. And sometimes it's something very subtle. It's just not right. So that's where the exploration for peace begins. How do we bring peace into our world? Through, in the modality of spirit, at least in the modality of practical spirituality. Practical spirituality refers to the use of our everyday life, the experiences we have being the palette for the increase in our consciousness. Increase in consciousness means being aware of how we be in the world, and is that way of being serving us and our higher good and the higher good of all. And if it's not, making changes in how we be. Now, once again, those changes in the world of practical spirituality come down to a very easy formula. And that would be to notice the places in our life where we are out of alignment with that natural inheritance that entered our system upon our first breath. Where are we in judgment? In judgment of ourselves? Where are we where are we unkind? To whom are we unkind? When are we not patient? With whom are we not patient? What times, where are we? Are we hungry? Are we tired when we lose our tolerance? So the manifestations of love our natural inheritance, are kindness and understanding, their patience, their tolerance, their wisdom, their gratitude, their grace. These are words we know, we work with them, but we haven't taken them as tools to help bring us to peace. So if we're out of peace, we need to observe and be aware of where we're out of peace. There are people, there's our husbands, our wives, our partners, our teenage kids, our in-laws, our whole name a member of a family. There are the people on the trains that scoop the seats, the people in the 8 items or less express line when we're trying to run out the door that have the 2 carts, right? There's the President of the United States for some people. There's the, you name it, the people on the roads. We have experiences so much in our life. So this is the beauty of practical spirituality, is we're not at a loss ever for finding places where we are out of peace.
That's true.
Right. So we accept the responsibility in this work of taking ourselves to peace by observing and bringing our awareness to where we're out of peace, number one. Number two, for choosing to respond from love in those places. Now it sounds so easy to talk about, and it's really, truly so difficult to do because we have years of habit of responding.
Yes.
The same low frequency that's come to us. Why do people get cut off on the road and the first thing they do is shoot up the middle finger? Because it's like this immediate response, or they curse, or they have an expression of dissatisfaction.
Right.
Expression of dissatisfaction.
Yes, that's a very polite way of saying it.
But that's our immediate response. And people say, well, that's human. Well, that may be, but when we're a conscious person who's choosing peace, we have to override that. So the process is observation and awareness of how you are. It's noting where you're out of alignment. It's choosing to respond in those places. And then it's fourth, it's learning new ways and new habits of responding from love. And it's kind of crazy, right? It's like the craziness, like Spirit took me out of this busy life and gave me nothing to fill me up with material. We have to choose to learn how to be the loving person that we were given the moment of our breath, but that's it. And so there is a process that I use with students to teach them how to go in that moment. You have to learn how to observe, because we're not observing. We're inside ourselves as this happens. So that's a part of the process. Then we have to learn. We have to identify the people. That's easier. Then we have to remember in the moment of being in emotional charge, we have to choose to be different. And then we have to know how to do that, how to bring that in. As we respond to others from a place of kindness and love, we're responding to ourselves from kindness and love. That's what part of the oneness. As we do that more and more, we become peaceful. So it's not my experience that we become peaceful just by meditating. Meditation is wonderful. I meditate all the time. And we go close down, we shut down the barriers, and we're able to go to quiet and experience the frequency inside of us that is love, then we have more of that. But what happens when you come out of meditation? What happens when you go to yoga? And people love yoga because they experience that. They experience that piece of themselves finally. They shut down enough, right? Yeah. But when you come off the yoga mat and go out and you try to get to the next, go out the exit before the next person, you're back into that whole monkey mind. You're not in that frequency. So when we use our everyday experiences, that's when our life becomes peaceful, because we're choosing to respond. And I'm sorry to go on for so long.
No, that's great. I've got so many thoughts going. You're triggering so many different ideas, but I was just thinking, it's kind of like a chicken and an egg kind of thing. So is it that you're kind to yourself and then you're kind to others, or you're kind to others and therefore you're kind to yourself?
It's a wonderful question. I think it's both. The word oneness, it speaks to the frequency that came into our body at our first breath, is the energy of the divine, whatever we want to call the divine, Yahweh, God, Buddha, Krishna. That divinity is in everyone. So when you are kind to another, you're working from that frequency, you are reaching the frequency in them that exists.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on their level of consciousness within their life stream and in their body, they will acknowledge that or not. We don't need their acknowledgement for that kindness to have been expressed and exhibited and accepted, because it goes into the vast net of the frequency that connects us all. So when you're doing a kindness to a person, you're not only experiencing it yourself, you're doing kindness for yourself, you're building that intuitive muscle in your body, but you're giving kindness in the energetic frequency of all there is to everyone, who people you'll never meet. There are times where it's very important, because you are part of that oneness and because the work is needed, where doing work energy directly, placing that energy on you, is also going to affect other people, but it's going to be directly received by you. It's like if you're working, I really compare this work a lot to working on muscles in the gym. If you go to the gym and you walk in and you haven't been there before, and you decide, well, I really need to work on my arms because I need upper strength, and you go and meet with a trainer, they're going to give you a whole workout because you haven't done anything.
Right.
But they give you extra exercises to focus on your arm. So when you're focusing on that arm, the arm is receiving it, but the whole entire body is being served as well, because you're tuning up the whole body and everything is connected. You know, that whole thing, the hip bone's connected to it's the same thing with our muscles. So it's the same thing with spirit. When you are putting out frequency, it's experienced by everyone who is open to it, and people you'll never meet. But it's very important in this work. I find that the people that come to me, I've been told recently, and this is really personally and spiritually, wonderful. I've been told that I'm the teacher of teachers, and I'm not surprised, because people like yourself, leaders, teachers, coaches, consultants, healers, who are on a path, who have done this work, who are ready. We talked about peace being really doing the work to create a peaceful life, is really a part of evolution. So the people that tend to come to this work because it's work, it's not crystals, it's not angels, it's not just prayer, all of which are wonderful and helpful, but it's doing the work, are people who are leaders, who are on the path. And so being the teacher of teachers makes sense, because this work is really advanced for people who are, really ready to, they've read the books, they've gone to the workshops, they've gone to the gym and done the work, but now they really need to focus. And all of the people that I work with exceptions, and I would include myself in this group, in my first 10 years of being a teacher, we need the love that we're giving to others. And we are more about giving to others than receiving. And so when we learned to receive, that's when we're able to produce even more. But it's so interesting that the people that come to see me, and as I said, I would put myself in that category early on, we give to everybody else, but we don't always place ourselves in a position of receivership.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you talk about receiving, because you had shared with me earlier, and I want you to share that quote about receiving, because I do think receiving, maybe it's just for people like myself, but receiving, I think, is harder than giving. It's the taking in. And share with us the quote that you have there about receiving.
The willingness to receive replaces the need to control. And this quote was given to me by Spirit. I'm going to say it again. The willingness to receive replaces the need to control. So I want to share a couple of things about that. Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing. Where does that land for you, Janet? When you hear that, what's so mind-blowing about it for you?
It's so true. It's so true for me. Because when I think about it, part of the thing that makes it so hard about receiving is the letting go of control, right? When you're giving, you're controlling what you're giving, how much you're giving, where you're giving it. But receiving it, it's out of your control. And for a control freak like myself, to be able to just to sit back and to allow, that is a really, I'm not going to say it's difficult, but it is not as easy as something else may be. And so that therein lies my lesson.
Yes. And you have so much company there, because we are not brought up to have our life be directed by higher frequency. There are few people, that know from the age of 7 that this is what they want to be or how their life. No, we're brought up for our brain from a very early age to create everything, to accept. We're told that you're valuable if you're producing. You're
Right.
valuable if you're getting an A in first grade. You're valuable if you're helping around the house. You're valuable if you do what I say.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has been really the way we've been trained from the time we've been very young.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole idea as we move forward in life is to have this control, to take over that job of controlling our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with structure in our lives. That's very important. It's how we allow the structure to be created.
Mm-hmm.
As I explained in my early iteration of Selina, before the car event iteration, which I loved and valued greatly. I was a planner. I was a doer. I was like, I had no time for anything except for what I was planning and doing. And I would have told you that's the way it is. And that's the way it was. And that was fine. But in the new iteration of being guided, because I don't plan anymore, which looks like my having responsibilities in life and knowing the responsibilities I have, but in terms of where am I going to live, what am I going to do, even down to where do I want to eat or what do I want to eat, I wait for things to land because I have surrendered to that. And then I make plans to do. In the world of control, I surrendered to that. Most of us, as I had for most of my life, are still very much locked into control as the paradigm that is needed in order for us to feel valuable.
Yeah. Yep.
And what really happens is in being locked into control, we're not totally conscious of what's behind a lot of our giving.
Mm-hmm.
Most people who are very giving people would tell you it's not control. I happen to love to give. And I believe that there's a very real and valuable and authentic need there that they move forward with. But I would also question and open-heartedly ask anyone listening to this live recording or the recording afterwards, really, check in and see what the word control feels like, because usually behind a lot of giving, as you just beautifully said, it's comfortable, because not only is that your nature, but part of that nature is giving, and part of that is the control.
Yeah.
So we really, being in receptivity is very uncomfortable for people until they start it.
Yeah.
So if people say, well, I don't know if that's me, look at how you are when people give you a compliment. Somebody says, oh, you look great. You say, oh, well, I was kind of in a rush today. My hair really doesn't look great.
Right.
Or, oh, thanks, but, really it's such an old scarf, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are you able to sit and listen and really hear and open up to the words and really kindly feel them in your being and thank them so much for that? Or do you just let it go and move on? I can't wait to get away from it fast enough. Just one of the clues that you might be in a place where you're not comfortable receptive.
Well, I think we could go on for hours talking about this concept, and it all starts with awareness, and I've said that for many, many years, and I want to thank you very much for enlightening us on a lot of these things, on how to start your journey towards inner peace. And I want you to take us out with the affirmation that you have that can assist us all.
I'd be happy to. I'm just going to look. I had my email turned off so it wouldn't be Ben. So I've just put that up here for us, and I can do that. And I want to just explain a little bit, if I could, before
Yes, please.
and I'll keep it short, I promise. An affirmation is a phrase that is created as if the state that you wish for is already in place. Because energy is in our words. Our words carry great frequency. And if we ask for something, every time you ask for something that isn't, you're actually reinforcing the fact that it's not there. I so want this, and I really would love to have that, and this isn't happening, but I would love, then you're reinforcing energetically. So when you speak an affirmation, it's always spoken in the words and the phrasing as if it's already in place. And I'm going to read the affirmation and then tell you why it's important, okay? So in this process of creating peace for us, just to introduce it, in this process of creating peace for ourselves, words carry a vibration, and as we speak words that speak about us as if we were already there, we are building that muscle, and we are creating more frequency in our world of peace that moves us up that evolutionary scale that I spoke of earlier that ultimately brings us there, okay? So here are the words. I am grounded in my natural inheritance of love. Rooted here in the energy of all possibilities, I am guided to be brave, to take bold actions, to speak my truth always through the frequency of kindness. I move forward consciously and deliberately, putting action behind all of the intentions that I am guided to hold. Intentions that serve my higher purpose and the purpose of all.
It's beautiful. That's
And
beautiful.
thank you. And so that speaks to moving forward in this natural inheritance of love that we all have, that we've had upon our first breath. And it opens up to the energy of all possibilities, allowing ourselves to be guided to take bold actions and speak our truth, knowing that this is the higher good and for the higher good of all. And so that's an affirmation. You'll be giving people the address that they can go to and just simply download that. There is an audio file for you that of my speaking that. If you'd like to hear the words, go to quiet. You can. There's a written staying that you can print out and put in your pocket, in your bag, so that you can carry the energy with you in whatever way you'd like.
Nice. Yes, and I will have a slide at the end of this with all that information on how to get that.
Thank you, Janet.
Well, I actually feel more peaceful than than when we started, and I was pretty good to begin with. So I just want to thank you, Selina. It's always a joy to be with you, and you really are a remarkable teacher, and I want to thank you for your wisdom that you've shared with us today.
Oh, well, thank you. And I want to thank you, my dear, because, you know, your energy and what the work that you're doing and the Superb Woman and your book, you've got a new book coming out, don't you? And
coming out in, stay tuned in a few months.
So I'm looking forward to that. So thank you for all the work you do and for the opportunity to share today. And thank you to everyone who is listening to this and really questing to be of peace, because the truth is the way we help the world to be more peaceful is to be more peaceful in and of ourselves. And so if people are looking to do work for the world on top of the many, many ways they can be of help, you know, you've just helped us to learn how to be more peaceful. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. And again, thank all of you for joining us today. And stay tuned for more upcoming events. Go to the Tribe of Superb Women and find out what we've got on the agenda. And until then, have just a superb week. Take care.